Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pradeep Ghorpade, OTA Myanmar's Chief India Representative and your host for today's Myanmar and Pakistan Pulses Trade and Overview webinar, jointly hosted by Pakistan Pulses Importers Association and Overseas Agro Traders Association Myanmar. Today's webinar features panel discussions on three key pulses: black matpe, black eye beans, and chickpeas, with expert panelists from both countries giving us a perspective on the production, available quantities for export or import, as well as price outlook for the three pulses. Apart from these three pulses, the webinar will also feature a crucial and critical discussion on the various aspects related to ease of doing business between both nations. This session will bring to fore the issues faced by the nations, as in Myanmar and Pakistan, and explore possible solutions to facilitate smooth and efficient trade. As we start today's webinar, it's my honor to now invite Mr. Mohammed Ahmed, President of Pakistan Pulses Importers Association, as well as Chief Executive Officer of the Awam Group, to present the welcome address. The Awam Group of companies, a family-owned agribusiness company, has been in operation for the last 45 years and deals in all kinds of grains and has processing facilities to support its business. Mr. Ahmed, as Chief Executive Officer of Awam Group, oversees the pulses operations, which has successfully grown the business volume for the group, which now stands as one of Pakistan's leading pulse importer and brokerage houses. Mr. Ahmed has also been a part of the Global Pulses Confederation's Executive Committee for 8 years and is a much sought-after speaker at international and national pulses conferences. Mr. Ahmed, welcome to today's webinar, and over to you for your welcome address.
Thank you, Mr. Pradeep. Salam and a very good afternoon, everyone. Warm welcome to our audience around the globe. Today's webinar marks the beginning of official collaboration between OTA and PPIA, with many more collaboration to follow in future. I would like to thank OTA and especially Mr. Vassal Ilani, President OTA, for its support in arranging this webinar. I would also like to thank our valuable panelists and moderators from both sides for their participation. I'm sure we will get benefit from the knowledge. I must assure you the panelists we have selected are the top in the industry and have vast experience in their respective business. Thanks to all our sponsors for their contribution, and it is their contribution which help us in conducting such events. PPIA was formed in 2017 with a goal to raise awareness and facilitate trade along with strengthening relationship among all stakeholders, which includes exporters, importers, indenters, customers, and even regulators such as Protection Department. In line with always strived our level best and have arranged different conferences, welcome reception, trade delegations, webinars to raise awareness and develop close relationship among all stakeholders. Today, majority of industry importers and indenters are under umbrella of PPIA, and we share good relationship and cooperation with major association of pulses and suppliers around the world. It is worth mentioning we have committed towards our goal, which addresses strengthened relationship with our partners from Burma and provide knowledge of crops, supply and demand. Pakistan pulses trade enjoys wonderful trade relationship with Burma. Over the years, Burma has been major supplier of particularly of black mape, along with other products such as chickpeas, mung bean, black eye bean. Pakistan and Burma trade mainly has been trouble-free because of standard quality of products shipped from Burma and business being controlled by reputable stakeholders. However, business still have the challenges, glitches with changes over the period, like delays in shipment, weight issues, delays in payment, clearing issues, COVID issues. A separate session has been kept to discuss such issues and hopefully will further smooth trade along with dedicated session for major traders. Pakistan being the fifth most populous country in the world with a population of 240 million people remains an important market in pulses world. Its significance further increases as government policies, particularly for pulses, are stable for last few years. Pakistan imports between 80,000 to 100,000 tons from Burma, which is 5% of annual consumption of 2 million tons, or about 10% of annual import, which was last year 1.1 million tons. I would like to extend invitation to Mr. Vassal to come and visit Pakistan along with his members. Before handing it over to Mr. Pradeep, I would like to thank everyone for your time and joining us. And I will like, after the session, please do share your valuable inputs so that we can improve in future. After each session, we would be having Q&A. Don't forget to ask questions from our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. I'm sure all the participants are looking forward to some interesting, informative, and interactive panel discussions today. Before we start the first panel discussion today, I would like to request all participating delegates to please post your questions in the chat box on your screens. The moderator for each panel will select relevant questions for the respective speakers from the chat box and present it to the speakers for their replies. Our first panel discussion today is on Black Mat Pay. Myanmar has a unique distinction of being the only country other than India to produce Black Mat Pay on a commercial basis. Our panel discussion today features Mr. Zia Ahmed, Trade Head at Crescent Overseas Private Limited, Myanmar, and Mr. Bilal Majid, Chief Executive Officer of Bombay's Group, Pakistan, as panelists. And this panel will be moderated by Mr. Lalit Bangar, Senior Vice President and Head Agri for PNP of Swiss Singapore Overseas Enterprises Private Limited. Mr. Bangar, a qualified chartered accountant, is the Senior Vice President and Head Agri at Swiss Singapore Overseas Enterprises, a $5 billion international commodity trading company, which is also a part of the $48 billion Aditya Birla Group. After being in Singapore for over 17 years, he moved to Dubai in early 2015. With great passion for the industry, he has been known to be a speaker on various international pulses forums and has many years of enriching experience in international pulses trade from various origins to various destinations. I have been witness to a number of panel discussions that Lalitji has hosted, and they have been nothing but interesting. And Mr. Zia Ahmed and Mr. Majid are definitely going to be facing some tough questions from Lalitji, I'm sure. Moving on to Mr. Zia Ahmed, he has over 22 years of trading experience in agro-commodities like beans, pulses, oilseeds, spices, grains, and lentils across Myanmar, Australia, and West Africa. Mr. Ahmed started his career from corporate finance and later moved to the agro-commodities business. He's a gold medalist in Masters in Business Administration from Amity University, Delhi, and also holds a master's degree in commerce. Representing the Pakistan trade is Mr. Bilal Majid, who entered the family business at an early age way back in 1992 and quickly adopted the family business. He spearheads the Pulses Indenting Division and local Pulses Brokerage Division. Mr. Majid's vast experience and vision has seen the company progressing many folds over the years. He is extremely well known for his commitment and devotion towards the pulses trade. The panel, led by Mr. Bangar, will showcase the overall outlook for Black Mat Pay in Myanmar and Pakistan, covering production, stock availability, trade numbers, price outlooks, etc. It's my pleasure again to welcome Mr. Bangar, Mr. Ahmed, and Mr. Majid in today's webinar. And I now hand over to you, Mr. Bangar, to take this forward. Mr. Bangar.
Uh, Thank you, Mr. Pradeep, for generous introduction. And I thank OTA and PPI for having invited me to moderate this session, which is one of very important product on black market. Uh, Minglawa, Adab, Namaskar, and hello to all our viewers and audience from all over the world. We will be discussing scenarios in two important countries, uh, pulses countries, which is one is Myanmar as an origin, and another one is Pakistan as a destination. And I have two eminent personalities for pulses with me, and would be pleased to interact with them for Black Market, which is the largest export product from Myanmar and fourth largest export product from the world after yellow peas, chickpeas, and lentils. So let me just start with Mr. Zia, who will be talking about Myanmar scenarios. Uh, okay, Mr. Zia, as we can see the numbers here, the production has been increasing in last 2 years from 500,000 in 2019 to 550, now 625, and then next year expected is 675 this year. So, what do you think? Because last year there was a sort of a thought that the Myanmar growers will go for more green mung beans, but we can see that black market production has gone a bit high. So, what do you think there is a reason for going for a higher production by the farmers in Myanmar? Mr. Zia.
First of all, I would like to thank Wata Myanmar selecting me as a panelist. Now, I move to a question. I would say the reason for this is due to change in the farming commodity by farmers from green bean to black mape. In my opinion, comparatively, it's just 20 to 25% of increase in production from the previous year production of 6,25,000 metric ton. When I refer your data sheet, the last year, the total exports from Myanmar already near to 7 lakh metric ton. So Myanmar farmers are confident that even if the production reaches to 7 lakh and above, it will be possible to export them without any issue. Having said that, with this 7.5 lakh metric ton, there wouldn't be any backlog of unexported crops. So, in my opinion, there would be no issue with any amount of bumper crop. That's all to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jia. You said right. There will not be issue from your side, but there will be issue on the destination side. People will be looking for the lower prices, and which was seen by Pakistan recently. They were hoping the prices to come to 800 and fall below that, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And in Gulf food, I see a lot of Pakistani buyers. They said, "Hey, what happened? That's happened for bumper crop. The prices again moved again up." So while the Myanmar is showing increase in production, I can see the from the Pakistan side, there is a decrease in production. Though there is not a very significant number, but still there is a decrease from 7,000. It has gone down to almost close to half, about 4,000. So, Mr. Bilal, what do you think? Why the farmers are not encouraged, or what is the reason that there is a decrease in production, please, Mr. Bilal?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak on Black McPay. And I also like to congratulate PPIA and OTA to organize a wonderful webinar. Actually, there are 3-4 reasons the falling productions. Like number one is minimum support price. Pakistan government is not supporting farmers. They are not giving any support price for black McPay. So some of the farmer change their crops and they shift to other better return crops. And other reasons is there is also tree cultivation areas. Some of the farmers shifted to tree cultivation, and the sowing area, all the year by year, it's reducing. So that is the reduced overall production.
Okay. As we can see, the overall the production is falling, but you can see that there are consistent imports from Myanmar and other countries. So, which these two countries, it is really news to many of our people. Maybe Afghanistan also plays a significant role in the in supply of the black market to Pakistan. It is quite significant number in 2021 specifically. If you see, it's almost 40% of the Myanmar number. So can you explain a bit more on this Afghanistan Thailand side?
The major import is from Myanmar. I think it's normally it's a 70 to 80% is a major import from Myanmar. And sometimes Afghanistan's crops is good, then we import, and if the prices are competitive, then it comes from through border from Afghanistan to Pakistan. And about 15 to 20% is the Afghanistan normally we import, and 4 to 5% from Thailand. Thailand is also, if the price is competitive, then we buy from Thailand. Otherwise, we normally buy it from Myanmar only.
Okay, so we'll go back to Zia and we'll discuss a very interesting scenario now. As we all know that currently, though it is a question for imports into India, but this will have a bearing on Pakistani exports also. So let us just analyze two scenarios. Now, at the moment, black market is under OGL for imports into India. Now, what if the government does not extend the OGL imports beyond 31st March, though we know there is a regime of G2G MOU imports, which is for 250,000 tons of black market. But there would be two scenarios. One, the extension of OGL imports beyond 31st March, and no such extension. So, Mr. Jia, what do you think the impact on demand and prices and would be there in both these two scenarios?
Okay, it's a good question. Let me take a scenario one. If there is an extension of OGL in India, Myanmar price definitely may go up, but it would stabilize after some time, irrespective of any selling pressure, as India can continue to import without any issue. So there will be a greater demand. But my concern here is, even if India extend the OGL, it would be definitely for short-term period. If we're lucky, may extend it again just before the time periods in. As it happened before, last OGL, the notification came until 31st December, all of a sudden they increased to 31st March. So now I go to scenario 2. If there is no such extension, there will be a less demand as India would not be importing, and so the price would also be lowered. However, even if there is no extension of OGL, there is still MOU with India for 250,000 metric ton of imports. But looking at the data, India's average imports from Myanmar is 625,000 tons to 650,000 tons, which means India needs this much of quantity every year. So with such data, I expect after MOU, there would be possibility of opening up OGL as it happened in previous year. Last time when they started giving the license, after the license, straight away they opened up OGL. So in my view, in both cases, the price would range from $750 to $850 at the highest. For black mape, yes to this price is for FOB Yangon. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's assume a situation when on 31st March, all of a sudden the Indian government decides that they will stop the OGL imports and go for MOU arrangement. Now, how do you think, to what extent both the governments are already ready to execute that MOU? Do you have any idea? Like, let's say take a scenario. So can they start from April 1st week, the MOU imports under MBU?
There won't be any issue for starting under MOU, because the notification already they given very clearly, and even in the Myanmar with the Beans and Pulse Association and our association OTA already discussed how to proceed with this kind of MOU. So it won't be any issue at all after 31st March. If no extension of OGL, we can start sending the cargo by MOU. No issue.
Okay. Great. Yeah, of course. For our Pakistan Pakistani friends, this was an important discussion because it will have a straight direct bearing on the exports to Pakistan also, like how the India behaves after 31st of March. So, so now there will be a change in the prices. So, Mr. Bilal, what do you think that Pakistan depend on black market imports, and when the prices moves higher, what are their scenario, and how do the Pakistan importers behave in such scenario when, as I can see, myself experienced during Gulf War that most of our people were hoping for below 800 price, then they will strike there. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. So when such scenario happens, what is usually the importer strategy there?
Actually, Pakistan has a good consumption of black mat pay, but it's also an elastic market. If the price remains stable at $800, so it's fine, consumption is okay. But when it starts increasing through 800 to 900, so our local consumers little bit shifted to other products like such as green mung beans. And we have a very good crop of green mung beans from last 4 or 5 years. This green mung beans price is about 550 levels. So some of the consumers shift their consumption to green mung beans. This is the main thing for the consumption.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Like, unlike in India where there is no substitute for black market pay, in Pakistan this can be substituted by green mung beans. It's quite interesting fact for the viewers. Last year, we have seen. I'm sure it is a global challenge on logistics and freight and shipments and vessels and containers availability. So, while majority of shipments to India have been shifted into break bulk, but Pakistan still would continue going with the containers shipments. So, Mr. Zia, this is a question for you that we have seen the freight moving from X to 10X in 2 years. So, what do you think going forward? Because as the India has been rather lucky enough to get lower freight through break bulk and lower prices than containers. Now, which is not the scenario with Pakistan. So, how do you foresee the near future, the overall logistic challenges and the shipments to Pakistan?
Okay, it's a very tough question. At first, let me highlight that the ocean freight for Karachi in 2018, it was just $250 to $300 for a 120-foot container. Whereas in 2021, it went up to $3,000. So we can estimate by how many times it got increased. Now coming to your question. The pandemic has brought big challenges for logistics. The current market environment in ocean freight is incredibly taxing for shippers. Freight prices, the ocean freight, are all-time high, causing a great problems for lower margin business. No, see, some of the problems. Let me highlight here. Okay, from the shipping perspective. The first one is a government regulation. Because of unforeseen circumstances like COVID-19, there are long process and bureaucratic regulations. Number two, safety management measures which affect the manpower. Last time when you used to do, let's say 100 workers in a factory, they cannot go with 100 because for the safety measure, they have to reduce the manpower. So this is also one of the reasons. The third thing is a rising of fuel prices. Now we know now in Russia, Ukraine also conflict, all of a sudden the crude oil price also went up. So the main point I want to say here, changing a consumer behavior. Around the world, households adapted to the pandemic and started to buy more consumer goods. They want to store it, Then the fifth point I want to say is a port congestion. Being impacted by COVID-19 infection of the port workers, ports around the world experienced for partial shutdown. So we cannot blame the port authority for this, as we are all in the same pandemic situation. The last point, which is important for Karachi, is imbalanced container movement. Especially when we talk to the shipping company, they say once the container move into the Karachi, there is no chance of getting back because their exports are also reduced. So when they quote the price for the ocean price, including a return back container also, this we have to note it down. So okay, as a shipper, what we should do? What we can do? We can make sure we are fully loading every container. That's why recently, if you notice, last time the shipper used to load a 24 metric ton into 124 container. Nowadays in Karachi, everybody loading for 25 metric ton because we also want to cut the cost. But I feel, the transport and logistics will continue to be under a lot of pressure in 2022. So only one way, we have to be patient. It's hard to predict when will we come back to normal. But as a consumer restore pre-pandemic purchasing behavior, volume of imports goods are likely to diminish and help the industry out of situation. I would like to give us some quote from the Musk line newsletter. He said, exceptional market conditions in shipping to persist until first quarter of 2022 or longer. But the same guy from the Musk line, Mr. Lars Michael Jensen, he is the network and market east-west officer. He say it is expected that the situation will improve, bottlenecks or expected to be relieved. But the same, one more quote from the economist from Goldman Sachs, assume that backlog and evaluated shipping costs are likely to be persist at least through the middle of 2022. So we have to assume this 2022 going to be like this. All these challenges, have brought about the bottlenecks and a surge in freight costs, which will take to go back to pre-pandemic levels. In short, we have to be patient before the situation unravels itself. That's all I can say today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jia. You made the whole logistic problems in such a way that it really become very small and tiny. But really, you said we have to become patient. I believe if we freight prices keep on going like that, then we will really become patient rather than being patient. So that's today we all should wish that we should be in the shipping business because this is the industry which has really made in current year the profits were of about 10 to 15 years sum total. In meanwhile, of course, we have seen the recent Russia and Ukraine situation also, and you're right that the oil prices also moving at the one of the highest level. But yes, we have seen the freights which we are paying for the sake of our interest for all the audience that in 2019, 2020, we were paying $300 to Karachi, which went up to as high as 3,000, 3,100 just after a few months. So 10 times, but yes, business will move on. Ultimately, it will pass on to the consumers. And so long as demand is there, we will keep on sailing our boats. Thank you, Mr. Dia, on the elaborative explanation on the logistic challenge, which is a very big challenge. I think keeping the timeline into view, maybe I would like to just, but before I close, maybe I can just ask two quick questions to both of you. Mr. Dia, what do you think the price band is expected in coming 3-4 months for black market, say SQ, because SQ is more prominent in Pakistan.
So when you compare a past 2 years record, so whenever the new crops start coming in the market during February to May, this is the selling pressure you can see. So this is the good period those who want to invest in the black market. So I expect maybe the FOB will be 750 to 800, which I just now mentioned, is going to be fluctuate within this. This is the range I predict.
Bilal Bhai is looking with great keen interest on your face. I could see the expression on his face that if you say 750 FOB, add the freight, then it'll be absolutely out. So you have to forget destination Pakistan, destination as such. Bilal, your
Right.
comments.
But mainly it's all depend on India, because India has a higher consumption. So whenever they comes to buy, and we have to follow them. But currently, in my views, 800 levels it can come, because this year Ziaba is also saying the crop is much higher than last year. So maybe the prices can come down below 800, or 800 would be the good price for buying and as well as selling.
I mean, we will wish for that, but let's just see the scenario, how the government policies are
Yes.
issued around March end. I think that time we will have more clarity.
Yeah, it's mainly India impact,
Absolutely.
Mainly whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so keeping the timeline, I think now it is time for the Q&A, question and answers. So we will take a couple of questions which I can see on the screen. Is there any break bulb vessel booked for Karachi, Mr. Jia? This is the interesting thing.
No.
Whether any small size break bulb vessel has been booked for Karachi. If you have any information.
Nowadays getting a break bulk is not easy at all. Olden days, the container freight was very cheaper. Break bulk was costlier. Nowadays, upside down. So break bulk is cheaper. Container prices are very high. So moving forward, sending a break bulk to Karachi, there is no feasibility first of all. Because they market what I see. I think up to 200 container is manageable for without any selling pressure. So to maintain the market within the level, I think if you send the break bulk to the Karachi, I think market going to see any heavy pressure. So sending a break bulk to Karachi, there's no feasibility at all. So and the same time from the shipper point of view, we don't have any plan to send a break bulk to Karachi.
Okay, Mr. Jia, thank you so much. But I can give you a clue here, or maybe a tip here, that break bulk does not mean that necessarily it has to be full with black mud pay only. Perhaps you may find some other interesting product which Bilal wants to be loaded together in one hatch, and then a couple other hatches would be, this is the going to be a good combination. Okay. Now this $800, somebody asked me this question, that $800 which you're talking about, which Bilal is interested to buy at, is FOB or CNF Yangon. It is CNF
Pakistan, Karachi, Pakistan. Yeah.
CNF Pakistan. So that is the price which Mr. Bilal going to look for when he start buying for that. Now, one clarification I would like to give here is that in the presentation you must have seen the numbers: imports into Pakistan in Pakistan slide and exports to Pakistan in Myanmar slide. These two are the different numbers, because the export from Myanmar has been considered as a shipment from Myanmar, and imports into Pakistan, the numbers given are the import landed into Pakistan. So there will be a slight difference because of the voyage and time lag. So don't confuse with the numbers there. So I think at the end we can summarize that, okay, black mud pea is going to be the largest volume product from Myanmar, out of which 80% goes to India, and about close to 8% of the total exports goes to Pakistan. Trade market still uncertain, volatile, unpredictable, and shipment to Pakistan would still continue in containers. And $800 is the resistance price, which we have to keep in mind, viewers. That's the important number, and that we have seen actually that when the prices went to 825, 830, 840, there was a big resistance from Pakistan, and hardly any business being done from Pakistan. I think that's end from our side, and I think we're just nice in time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So, Jia,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Liyas sir.
Panelists, and then thank you everybody and all the viewers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to Mr. Pradeep.
Thank you, Mr. Bangar. Before we proceed on, there's just one small thing. Since I'm based here in India, what I'd like to just kind of bring to everybody's notice that the MOU which is there between India and Myanmar is effective April 2021 for 5 years. All right. Now, even today, if somebody wants, they can import under the MOU. But since it's an OGL commodity currently, nobody is going in for the MOU. Therefore, in case the government does not extend the OGL regime, then effective 1st April, it automatically comes into effect. Yes, there would be a possibility of a bit of a lag because there is some documentation that needs to be done. The Indian importer needs to get an NOC from DGFT. Now, DGFT, after the MOU was announced, has also already put out the process to be followed for importing under the MOU. So that documentation could take a few days. So there you might find a bit of a lag till the documentation gets completed and the imports will start over again. So that's just a small clarity to everybody on the MOU front.
Thank you. Thanks for clarification.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again, Mr. Bangar, Mr. Ahmed, and Bilal Bhai for that insightful and informative discussion. And as expected, Lalaji did put in a few googlies out there, and it was good to see Bilal Bhai and Zia Bhai coming down the pitch and knocking them for a 6. Interesting to watch and listen to. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Coming up next is the Black Eye Beans panel led by Mr. Mahesh Raja Manglani, Commercial Director, Maskalandar Group, Pakistan, with Mr. Sham Narsaria, Chief Executive Officer, RV International, Myanmar, and Mr. Zishan Salim, Director, Zishan Enterprises, Pakistan. The Black Eye Beans panel will showcase the overall outlook for Black Eye Beans in Myanmar and Pakistan, covering production, stock availability, trade numbers, price outlook, etc. And it will be my pleasure now to introduce our panel to you. Mr. Manglani joined the family business after completing his graduation and diversified the company's business portfolio into different commodities in addition to several export facilities, adopting innovative procedures and advanced strategies to deliver premium customer service and products. The group, one of the oldest organizations in the country, is a leading entity in imports, exports, indenting, and local brokerage trade in Pakistan, and its business interests spread across a variety of commodities, including pulses, grains, oilseeds, spices, and feed. Mr. Manglani primarily handles imports, exports, and indenting business verticals of the company and has been instrumental in setting up branch offices in UAE, Cotonou, and Niger. Representing the Myanmar trade, we have Mr. Sham Narsaria, Chartered Accountant, Company Secretary, and Software Engineer by qualification. My God, that's quite a bit, Shamji. And has over 20 years of experience in doing import-export of agricultural products such as pulses, rice, sugar, sesame, and maize, and spices. He has rich customers, resources, and a very high business reputation. Mr. Narsaria, based in Yangon, is actively involved in sales, purchase, and market research and analysis of pulses. Before joining RV International Private Limited, Mr. Narsaria has worked with Ernst & Young in Kolkata. He is an eminent speaker at various international beans and pulses platforms across, including the Global Pulses Confederation and India Pulses and Grains Association. Mr. Narsaria also serves as the Vice President of Overseas Agri-Traders Association, Myanmar. Representing the Pakistan Trade Fraternity today is Mr. Zishan Salim of Zishan Enterprises, who joined the family-owned business after completing his graduation and took charge to expand its business activities into new territories, and later on involved himself in sales and marketing as well. Zishan Enterprises is one of the renowned importers and brokerage houses in Pakistan, delivering premium customer service as well as importing large quantities of pulses. It's my pleasure once again to welcome Mr. Manglani, Mr. Narsaria, and Mr. Salim to today's webinar. And now hand over to you, Mr. Manglani, to start the panel discussion. Mr. Manglani, over to you.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Pardeepji, for the wonderful introduction. Assalamu alaikum, namaste to all the panelist speakers and our respected viewers. Today, we will be having Black Eye Beans panel discussion in depth with our speakers, Mr. Sham Nasaria and Mr. Dishan Salim. So we'll start with the presentation on Black Eye Beans. This is the production of the black eye beans in the Myanmar. If you see the numbers, in 2017, the production was around 60,000 tons, and and this year it is expected around 45,000 tons. So we see the numbers are going down, the production is going down, and Pakistan does not produce black eye bean. Please ignore this black mappe. And now moving towards black eye beans imports into Pakistan, we see very minimal numbers being imported from Myanmar to Pakistan. And in this year and last year, there was no imports or very less imports as compared to nothing from Myanmar. However, the Myanmar black eye beans have been exported to various different destinations in good volumes. And we will welcome on board now Mr. Sham Nasaria and Zishan Salim. Can you hear me, Mr. Sham?
Yes, very much.
Okay, please, you are welcome on board. I have a question. So, what is the harvesting time for the black eye beans in Myanmar, and how is the quality crop this year?
Thank you so much for requesting this question, because so many people are confused about the harvesting time of black eye bean in Myanmar. Actually, the sowing time is November of every year, and the harvesting time is start from January and February. But I would like to give a bit more detail. There are three different kind of black eye bean available in Myanmar. Number one is the Delta quality, for which the sowing start late October and early November, which also comes out in end December and early January. That quality is a bit small in size, and the eyes are brown, but it is named as black eye bean. Then comes is the Bago region, which is the main producing region, which produces almost 80 to 90% of the black eye bean. In Bago region also, there are two different kind of variety. One is brown color, which is similar to Brazil cargo, and another is black color, black eye, which is also named as a US type premium quality, which is similar to the this Madagascar quality. So the harvesting time is January and February.
Okay. And which quality is exported from there usually, and which is best quality to be exported from Myanmar, and in terms of size, if you compare with other origins?
All the three varieties are exported. The one which comes from Delta region is exported in the month of December and early January, and it is quality is little inferior. Size is small, and it is less price, say somewhere around 650 to 700 US dollars. Then comes in the January end or February 1st is the Bago region. Bago, which is brown color. This is little better quality. Size is little bigger than Delta variety. And the price is somewhere around $700.
Prices. Sorry to interrupt. Prices we will cover a little bit later. We will take a question from Mr. Zishan. Why there are imports very less from Myanmar, and what are the major countries from you think the black eye bean is being imported into Pakistan?
Thank you, Mahesh. The reason is that the purchasing behavior of the end consumers, they like the Brazilian quality very much, and they always demand for it because it is silky, sortex, and polish. And the other reason is that the price difference
Mr. Dishan, we cannot hear you. There's an issue with your network. Please check. Are you with us, Mr. Dishan? There's a network issue with you, Mr. Dishan. Coming back to you, Mr. Sham.
Hello, Mahesh bhai.
How is the Gigi? Hello,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yeah, I can, I can. Am I
Okay.
audible?
Yes, it is fine now. Please go on.
Yeah, so I was saying that it depends on the purchasing behavior of the end consumer, and they like the brown eye beans from Brazil very much, and they always demand for it because of its silky, sortex, and polish, natural polish nature. And the other thing is that the price difference in the domestic market between the brown eye beans from Brazil and the Myanmar black eye beans, which is about $50 to $60. And when you go to see the product from Myanmar, Brazil is very much competitive with their prices, and we don't get this $50 $60 difference in the international market. So that is
So
why the import gets
Myanmar
less.
quality is much more premium than the Brazilian one.
No, no, the Brazilian is the premium. It has a premium of $50 $60 in the domestic market,
Okay,
and
okay,
Myanmar is on the second number. And
okay.
the
But
major
Pakistan is price-oriented market. Why don't we
yeah.
import from Myanmar? As
Because Mahesh,
Brazilian is premium.
no, no, but because Mahesh, the Brazilian product is always competitive with Myanmar. Like today, if you go to buy some product from Myanmar, it is $885, and say from Brazil, you will get in the same range, $885 to $900. So
Okay,
they have been competitive in last many years.
okay. What is the purpose and consumption in Pakistan for black eye beans? In
It
which
is mainly
areas mostly it is
uh
consumed?
Okay. It is mainly used in salads and curries, and overall in all areas of Pakistan, it has been consumed in Sindh, Balochistan, KP, Punjab, everywhere. But Punjab is the most is the area where it is consumed most.
Okay. And what time do you think is the best time to book black eye beans, either from Myanmar or Madagascar or Brazil?
See, there are two buying cycles. One at the start of the Brazilian crop, that is in June and July, because
Okay,
our main consumption period is between from March to October, November. So the product that will be buy will book in June. It will cater the demand from August to October. And this is the second cycle is in winter. We should buy in winter like December or January, which will cater the demand after the season of Ramadan, like in April to August, April to July, you can say.
okay, okay.
And
Do we have
and
also
I would like
import from
to
Madagascar?
sorry, I would like to add one more thing here. And if
Okay,
I would like to add one more thing here is that if in winter season, if for some reason we don't get the Brazilian product, maybe because of price or the shortage, then we go to buy the Myanmar product, and we seek for the Myanmar product. Like in the presentation, you can see in 2019 and 20, we in last 5 years, this is the most number of import from Myanmar to Pakistan. It's
okay,
about 1,800 tons, if I'm not wrong.
right. Yeah, before that it was 200 tons and
Yeah.
275,000 tons, something.
Yes.
275 tons only.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Sham, is there any local consumption for black eye beans in Myanmar, or it is all exported?
Yes, there is local consumption of black eye bean. Around about 5,000 tons is consumed locally. This is the only beans which is consumed in reasonable quantity. Mostly
Okay,
black eye bean is consumed in the fresh beans when it comes. Like now it is coming fresh beans is mostly consumed, and the finished black eye bean, dried one, is also consumed around 5,000 tons
okay,
annually.
all right, all right. And how much carry forward stock do we have?
Normally, black eye bean we don't have any carry forward stock. It is almost
Okay,
consumed because this is
okay,
very sensitive item.
okay. And what are the major destinations black eye bean is exported from Myanmar to which destinations mostly?
And the black eye bean is a commodity which have many destinations, not confined to only India. India is also a consumer, but apart from India, Pakistan, the whole Middle East, UAE, Iran, Iraq, it goes to Africa, Egypt, it goes to a lot of countries in Europe, US,
Okay,
Canada, and one of the main consumers is South Korea, Japan, even it goes to Malaysia. So it has a
okay,
almost every country is a buyer for black eye bean. Even Nepal. Nepal is also a big buyer for black eye bean.
okay. And how do you compare the black eye beans from Myanmar and black eye beans with Brazilian ones?
See, like as I mentioned, black eye bean from Myanmar, there is one Bago region quality which is brown color. It is similar
Okay,
to Brazilian, but the size is little smaller than Brazilian quality.
Okay.
And another main crop is the black eyed bean black color, which is termed here as US type. That is, I think, better than Brazilian quality. It demands a premium also of around $50. As Mr. Zishan also said that Brazilian is more preferred. Yes, over the Bago brown color, Brazilian is preferred, but for the black color, the premium is higher. So still they prefer in
Okay.
Pakistan, they prefer the Brazil quality.
Okay. Okay. And also, as per the given numbers in presentation, we see the production is decreasing. So it is because of the demand prices or the farmers are switching to another commodity.
It is also because of the demand, but the main reason is black eyed bean, as I told, it is like I'm in Yangon, the main shipping port. The main growing area is just 50 to 100 kilometers away from Yangon, from the port. So the main demand is from so many countries. But if the price goes up, the demand is less. So last few
Okay.
years we have seen the demand was less as the Brazilian and Madagascar quantity was more. But also the main reason was in last 3 years, 4 years, the demand for green mung was very good. And the area for green mung, black mappe and black bean is similar. The farmers easily switch to green mung, which is also 60 to 75-day crop, and it fetch better price and more market.
Okay.
That is the
So
main
they
reason for
use
demand production coming down.
okay, okay, okay. So they switch to green mung beans because to get the better
The-
price.
right, right.
Okay. How you'll explain the current situation of the shipping line availability of containers and the freight? Are you
The
able to get containers right now?
Mr. Zia also have explained the same thing very thoughtfully and very clearly. Yes, we are able to get containers, but not like last 3 years back when the freight was say $500. Now the current freight is somewhere around 3,000 to $3,300 for 20 feet. In
Okay,
3 years back, it was around $500. Then the containers were easy. But now there are around 20 shipping lines in Yangon. Only two or three are able to ship to Pakistan, and also the transit time is very long. So the containers are not very easily available. It is real difficult to find containers for Pakistan. So the
okay,
logistics situation is still not stable in Yangon, at least for Pakistan.
okay, okay. And how prices will rule for black eye beans locally and internationally? What are your opinions and view for our audience? What do you will suggest?
I think this is the right time to buy black eye bean because the current price in Yangon somewhere around 700 to $750. I'm talking about the SQ variety only because this is SQ is mostly traded in Myanmar, and the current crop which is coming the Bago region, SQ is 85 to 90% and FEQ is only 10 to 15%. So we are just talking about the SQ quality, which is the most prominent quality which is being dealt, and the price around 700 to 750 depends on the cleaning. It is sorted or hand pick or machine clean or back to back. So it depends on that. But I think 700 to 750 FOB Yangon level is a very good price to buy, seeing the past 4 5 years record. And it is a good time. People can buy this price. I mean, my friends, traders who wish, they can buy this price.
Okay. And is there any new bookings currently from the new crop for future
Yes, there
contracts?
are a lot of bookings, but comparatively, this year the booking is low. Like this year,
Okay.
Dubai, Middle East has not buy so much. They bought, but they just bought last year. Like until this time, they were booking for around 10,000 tons. This time, it is just 1,000 or 2,000 tons. So the booking is less. Maybe they are waiting for the price correction, or maybe this Corona pandemic may also be a reason for less consumption. Maybe.
Okay. All right. Mr. Zishan, what do you think about the prices locally in Pakistan? And at what prices we can book the cargo from different regions such as Myanmar, Brazil, or any other available for black eye beans?
The current prevailing prices in Pakistan around for Brazilian product, which is the only product available right now in the domestic market, is 164 to 166, which corresponds to $860 to $880. Okay, so in the start of the season, we have seen the term from the prices pick up from $140, which was at 850 $800, sorry, and maximum price we have seen in our domestic market is $950. So currently we are receiving the cargoes of $950 to $955 from Brazil, and people are making loss on that. And if we talk about today, the prevailing prices in the international markets are somewhere in between 870, 880, 880 region from Brazil and also from Mahesh bhai. Mahesh bhai. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Mahesh, you can continue.
Yeah, Mahesh bhai, am I audible? Hello.
I think Mahesh Bhai is probably dropped out due to some internet connectivity.
Mhm.
Zishan Bhai, you can continue. You were saying something.
Yeah, Pradeep, I was just saying, I was just finishing that currently international prices are in between 870 to 900 range, and same prices prevail in the domestic market right now.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just take a couple of questions that have come in from the audience. There's a question here for you, Shamji. What is the reason behind the sour taste of black or brown eye beans coming from Myanmar?
Pardon, I could not get. Can you repeat again?
What is the reason behind sour taste of black eye beans coming from
Reason
Myanmar?
behind shark?
Sour taste, khatta taste.
Okay, sour taste. Okay. No, we have never experienced any sour taste. In fact, maybe for brown hygiene or delta variety, it might be, but I've never heard about this. But normally, the black eyed bean from Myanmar, the taste is very good and it is preferred. And even the this US type, the taste is very good. It is comparatively sweeter than other two varieties.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to the presentation, which I also have here, and add a question on this. Is when we look at the import numbers. One minute, I'll just go to a full screen mode. Okay. What has been the reason, actually, Zishan Bhai, probably I can ask you this question, is what has been the reason for this drop that we see in imports from Brazil? Joe, it was in around 13,000 tons in 2018-19. It's come down to almost 7,300 tons. That is one question. And second question was that are there any steps being taken in Pakistan, considering the quantity of imports that are happening, to increase Pakistan's domestic production for black eyed beans?
So the Pradeep, for the first question, that since 2019, the prices have increased sharply in the origin, both due to the production issues in Brazil. So that is why on the higher numbers, there were less importers and less quantity were imported. And also same here in the domestic market, at the higher numbers, the demand is very less. And the secondly, we are a market of only about 10,000 tons market, or 12,000 tons at max per annum. So government is looking into some other pulses like green mung beans and chickpeas and other beans that are imported in much bigger quantity. So they are looking to increase the plantation of those pulses rather than going into black eye bean.
Okay. I think, let me just see if there are any other questions that have come in. Then probably look at them. I don't think we have any more questions here right now. So, thank you so very much, Mr.
Pradeep bhai,
Nasaria.
Pradeep bhai.
And yes, Zishan bhai, boliye.
Pradeep, one last thing. I just spoke to my counterpart in Brazil for this panel research, and they told me that this year they don't have any demand from Pakistan at this moment in time, not from Egypt and not from India. So they have a very disappointed Gulf food as well.
Uh-huh.
Before in previous years they used to book for future contracts at the Gulf food, but this year they haven't been able to book a single contract for their future crop. So this year they are going to decrease their area to corn. They'll be
Okay.
planting more corn than like brown beans.
So you're expecting that there is going to be effect in terms of the production levels in Brazil also.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
did then, if that is happening, then do you expect it to kind of affect the prices?
See, currently the prices are at very at high. Very prices are still very high. But
Hmm.
what I can say is that I think in next 1 or 2 months, buyers would look towards Myanmar for the imports, because
Okay,
in last 3 4 months we haven't booked anything out of Brazil.
okay. I
Like
think we
winter,
have
like the
Mahesh Bhai
winter.
back with us.
Yeah.
So I'll hand over to Mahesh Bhai again to take this forward. Mahesh Bhai, all yours.
Gee, hello. Sorry, I got disconnected. Maybe it was a network issue.
Please continue, Mahesh.
Gee, so do you have any questions, Mr. Pradeep?
No, there were a couple of questions which I've asked. In case you have any further questions, please go ahead.
Okay, so we
Mahesh
were
bhai,
with
your
Mr.
voice is breaking. You can type in chat. If you have any question or anything, you can type so that we can repeat it.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Is it better?
Yes.
definitely.
Okay, so we were with Mr. Zishan and talking about the prices locally. So I believe that was already discussed now. And so uh, moving forward, what do you think, Mr. Zishan, will be importing now from Brazil or from Myanmar in our summer seasons?
Uh, so So the summer season we'll be looking towards Brazil, but currently we haven't booked anything for the winter. In the winter, last 2, 3, 4 months we haven't booked anything. So maybe in next 1 or 2 months we'll be asking something out of Myanmar.
Okay, from Myanmar, right? And do you think the prices which Mr. Sham advised will be workable for Pakistani market?
See, I think that the cargo that is on the way would be very limited. So if the domestic prices will increase, maybe these prices would be workable.
Okay, and
Because
as
that
you
because
said,
of that because you see, one more thing is there. The transit time from Myanmar to Pakistan is less. If you compare with the Brazil takes 2 and a half months, and with the shipping prices that we are having right now, it could take up to 3 months as well. And from Myanmar,
okay,
it comes in 20 to 30 days max.
okay, so you believe if the prices are workable, the Pakistan will switch from Brazil to Myanmar.
The Pakistan importers can look into it.
Okay, and is there any substitute for black eye beans in Pakistan?
No, at the higher prices, the demand gets less, but there is no substitute of black eye beans.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Sham and Mr. Dishan. It was wonderful session with you people. As we are running out of the time and we have to start another session, so I'll hand over to Mr. Pradeep. All to you.
I
Thank you
have
again.
one.
Thank you,
I
Mahesh.
have
Thank you,
thank
Shambhala.
Mahesh Bhai, thank you. But I have one quick question for Shyam Bhai. Considering
Okay.
that what Zishanji just said, that given the shipping times and container availabilities, if that requirement which was being uh, kind of provided for or was being met by Brazil imports, if that suddenly shifts to Myanmar, will Myanmar have that kind of stocks to supply to Pakistan?
Yes, yes, very much. Now our main black eye bean production, this is the harvesting time. As you can see, this year we're expecting around 45,000 metric tons, and not much have been exported. So still we can say we have around 35,000 metric tons of black eye bean available. So we are very much in a position to supply to Pakistan and even the Middle East market.
And what would you expect the price to be then?
The current price is somewhere around 700 to 750, depend it is a shortage or what kind of clearance, FOB level.
Zishan Bhai, will that be an acceptable price for Pakistan market? And will they move to Myanmar?
See, Pardeep bhai, the coming months are the months for the demand. Right after the Ramadan, the black eye beans demand will pick up. So if the prices for Brazil in the domestic market goes up, then obviously these prices would be workable from Myanmar.
Excellent. So I think Shamji, I think everybody in the trade in Myanmar should buckle up and be ready for some good amount of requirement
Thanks
coming in out
for
of
the information.
Pakistan. There's just one last question for you, Shamji. It's come from Mr. Yogesh Agarwal of Uniforce International. What is the
Mhm.
export of black eye beans to India this year? How much do you expect it to be to India?
Well, I expect around 5 to 10,000 tons, somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000. India is a slow buyer for black eye bean from Myanmar. Very
Hmm.
limited buyers from North India buying. So far, they have not yet started, but I feel in the coming days, uh, some export can be done. I expect somewhere around 5 to 10,000 tons, and they prefer mostly the brown color, bucko brown color.
Thank you. We'll close this session for today. And if there are any further questions, you can please email them to us and we will send it to our speakers for being addressed to. Thank you, Mr. Manglani, Mr. Nasaria, and Zishan Bhai for the information, insights, and the thoughts that you've shared, and very frank discussion, especially in terms of the price outlook. Thank you so very much, because I think that's something
Thank you.
which the trade always looks forward to. We
Thank
now
you.
move on to our third panel discussion of the day, that is the chickpeas panel discussion, which will cover both Desi as well as Kabuli chana. Mr. Mahesh Manglani, Commercial Director, Muscal and the group, will return to moderate the chickpeas panel, which will feature panelists from Myanmar, Mr. Manoj Chaudhary, Country Head, Sun Impex International Foods LLC, and uh, representing Pakistan would be Mr. Anas Mania, Managing Director, Midtrans Foods, Pakistan. The chickpeas panel again will showcase the overall outlook for both Desi and Kabuli chana in Myanmar as well as Pakistan, covering production, stock availability, trade numbers, price outlooks. Before we go on to it, I'll quickly introduce Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Mania to our audience. Mr. Manoj Chaudhary has over 18 years of experience in trading, having started his career as a trader at the young age of 23, and then moving on to a professional career with an international exposure of close to 15 years, and in the process developing an expertise in agro products. Mr. Mania, a graduate from IBA University, joined the family business in 2012 and has been instrumental in the consistent growth of the company over the last decade. Midtrans Foods currently has two processing facilities with a combined production capacity of 50 metric tons of splitting facility and 100 metric tons of cleaning, processing, and sortex facility for all forms of pulses. It is my pleasure to welcome again Mr. Manglani along with Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Mania to today's webinar. And I now hand over back to Mr. Manglani to start the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, namaste once again. Thank you, Pradeep ji. And I hope my network doesn't go out this time again. So today, again, the panel will be on Desi and Kabuli Chana, and we will have in-depth and good discussion with the Desis and Kabuli traders, Mr. Manoj Chaudhary and Mr. Anas Mania. As you can see, Pakistan is the largest importer of Desi and Kabulis into Pakistan from different regions. And Myanmar is one of the country which produces and exports Desi and Kabuli chana. So we have with us Mr. Manoj Chaudhary from Sun Impacts and Mr. Anas Mania from Midtrans Foods. We'll start with the presentation and the numbers. So this is the Desi chana production and the trade between Myanmar and Pakistan. As you can see, in 2017-18, the production in Myanmar was 225,000 tons, and today in 2021 to 2022, it is more or less same, around 230,000 tons. Whereas the production in Pakistan is less as compared to last 3 years, it is around 300,000 tons expected. And the imports from different countries for Desi chana into Pakistan, it ranges from 420,000 tons to 427,000 tons. Whereas we can see the very low and minimal volume has been imported from Myanmar, which is around 13,000 tons as of 2021 and 2022. However, Myanmar is exporting good quantity to different countries, and it is around 35,000 tons, which is almost 13 to 14% of the total crop. And we believe there would be a carry forward stock as well. Coming to Kabuli chana production in Myanmar and imports into Pakistan. Pakistan imports around 270,000 tons in 2001, in 2021, and whereas the production exports from Myanmar were around 68,000 tons and export to other countries were around 28,000, which is more or less like 50 to 60% of the total crop. So now moving forward to our speakers, we have with us Mr. Manojji. So Manojji, I have a questions from you and we'll start a discussion on the Desi and Kabuli chickpeas. So how many varieties do you think we have in Myanmar for Desi and Kabulis?
Thank you, Mahesh bhai. First of all, Salaam Alaikum, all the Pakistan, Namaskar to India and Minglawa to Myanmar. Going back to your question, like how many varieties? There were three varieties of Desi chickpeas produced in Myanmar. The one is Holon, 929 and Myachimon. And in Kabuli, mainly two varieties. It depends on size B2 and B7, and little extent they have a bigger size that we call as a B9.
Okay. And what volumes do you export or exported in past? Which quality do you export it to Pakistan in Kabulis and Desis? Because Desis we import from Australia as well. And I believe both of the varieties of Desis are imported into Pakistan from Myanmar. Obviously, the quantities are not as much bigger, different origins.
Basically, like Desi chana is a very price sensitive market, and being a Myanmar prices are a bit higher side because of the local consumption. So a
Okay.
special type of chana that which is used for a putana purpose, like a machimon, it has been imported in Pakistan and some extent Holland chana.
Okay. And how do you will explain the different sizes and types of Kabulis like you already mentioned? Which Kabuli have which sizes?
Okay.
And which one is exported most?
Okay. See, the Kabuli like B2 is a mix of 4, 5, 6 mm size, and B7 is a mix of like 5, 6, 7. It is bit similar to like what Russia is having, like 5, 6, 7 size.
Okay.
V7 and V9 is 7, 8 mm.
Okay.
And mainly exported quality is V2.
Okay. All right. Mr. Anas, we can see the numbers of production in Pakistan have decreased for Desi chickpeas. What is the reason behind this?
Thank you, Mahesh bhai, and a big hello to all the panelists, speakers, and our wonderful audience. Yes, coming over to you, Mahesh bhai, you can see that the weather is the main factor that affects the desi crop here in Pakistan because we don't have a good irrigation system here. We are totally dependent upon the rains, and the rains, and it depends from year to year end basis. So that's why the production is not really under the control of the farmers. The government does not give much incentives. So yeah, this is what it is for this is.
Okay, so you believe this year the imports would be higher than the last year. If we compare to last year, this year imports for Desis would be higher.
But this year, just in 2022, the situation is very different, Mahesh bhai, because this year we are expecting a bumper crop, and maybe we need to import even less than 100,000 tons this year because people are expecting a bumper crop that we haven't seen for the past 5, 6, 7 years here.
Okay, how do you see the weather for? Is it fine and good for the harvesting for the Desi chickpeas?
Yeah, it rained today, and people are expecting it rained today, which is even more good for the crop. It was already a bumper crop. It rained today, and people are more bullish, more optimistic now
Okay,
about the
okay,
production figures. So yeah, it's a
okay,
good crop so far, so good.
okay. And okay,
Yeah.
coming to Mr. Manojji, what are the major countries for which Desi and Kabulis is exported from Myanmar? And how much is the local consumption of the chickpeas? Is it white Desi? Is it Kabuli or Desi chickpeas?
Apart from Pakistan, like Bangladesh is one of the biggest market for the Myanmar products, and also it goes some extent to Nepal and India.
Okay.
For the 80%, 60 to 70 to 80% of the production of both Desi, for Desi, it has been consumed in locally. Like most of the dal mills and Upper Myanmar side are there, which produces all the dals, and they have a staple food in the morning breakfast. They call it as a mohinga. In this chana dal has been used a lot in a form of besan, and
Okay.
they also make a tofu which is soya free. So that in that also this is highly consumed. So in consumption is very high for desi chana in Myanmar.
Okay. And how about Kabuli?
Kabuli is also like when the prices goes up in a local market for desi, then they used to prepare for the dal meal and they mix with desi.
Okay, so they use as a substitute, same like in Pakistan we do.
Yes.
Okay. As per the presentation and the numbers given, we see the exports from Myanmar for Desi is almost more or less around 5% only of the total
Yeah.
production in Myanmar. So what is the reason behind that?
The first reason is the stable production. You might be seeing that from past 5 years, the production has not been increased. It has been more or less same. First
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah, and the second thing is that the domestic consumption is good in for this one chana
Okay.
in
How
Myanmar.
much is the total domestic consumption for the chana?
It can be considered like altogether it is 60% to 70% is consumed here.
Okay. And how much will we carry forward?
Carry forward by Ms. Jan 2022, we are expecting around only 20 to 30,000, including both Desi and Kabuli.
Okay, all right. And how do you expect the crop this year?
Looking at like everything is going fine in Myanmar, weather is good and everything is good. The crop started harvesting also here. So it feels like around means around about 250,000 ton about Desi will be there, and 70 to 80,000 will be the Kabuli.
Okay, okay. And what are the major countries for Kabuli? Because Pakistan imports from different regions and allows it from its China's money as well. But what other countries do you export major from Myanmar?
Kabuli we export to India and Nepal to
Okay,
some extent.
okay. Okay, but coming to Anasji again, how much volumes are
Mm-hmm.
imported from Australia in terms of Desi, and from which other countries do we import Kabulis? Which one is the highest exporter of Kabulis as well to Pakistan?
First, moving towards Desi, Australia is our main origin from where we import the goods. Mainly, it's because of the price. So, we are importing from Australia, from Tanzania, from Russia, from Myanmar, and it's a price competition. Whoever wins, Pakistan buys from them. So, this is the scenario on Desis. For Kabulis, yes. You can see that the figures in Pakistan for Kabulis have increased a lot. We used to import around 150,000 tons back in 2017. Right now, we are importing close to 300,000 tons of Kabulis every year. So 270,000 tons
Okay,
was in 2021. So out of which 150 to 160,000 tons is the smaller caliber that we are importing mainly from Russia. So we have Russia, we have Myanmar, and then we have Sudan. That's the three main countries from where we import the smaller caliber. And again, it's a price competition. So usually
okay,
Russia wins. So that's where we are buying most of our cargoes from. And looking into the larger caliber, which is 8 and 9 mm, that's we are importing mostly from Canada, Turkey,
okay,
USA, and Argentina. Yeah, these are the origins
okay.
from where we are importing. Yeah.
Okay, as you
Mhm.
mentioned Russia and Sudan, so I believe this year there were less or no imports from Sudan because of the critical conditions ongoing in Sudan. And since yesterday we see a
Yeah,
dispute between Russia and Ukraine, so everything has come to an halt,
exactly,
including shipping lines, the exports
exactly.
and
And this.
imports. So what do you think?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Pakistan will divert to which market for Kabulis?
I know this is a very tricky question because the importers, yeah, they are just thinking all around. If we have heard that no vessel is going to Ukraine, so Ukraine is out. So far, I just read an article today. Maersk Line has said that they are going to and fro from Russia, but that's also a very critical situation that we will know next week. So if Russia is out, as I mentioned, 150,000 tons we need for the smaller caliber. I can't find any origin from where we can cover those 150,000 tons. So yes, Sudan crop is coming in April, which is next month. In April, yeah, after 2 months. And Myanmar is the main origin that we are looking at for the time being. If anything happens with Russia and if Russia is out of the equation.
Okay, then we'll be moving to which market? Do you think Myanmar is the right market to move on if the prices are workable?
Myanmar is right. Yeah, prices are right now. The prices out of Myanmar and Russia are both the same at the moment. That's why you have seen a lot of trades happening out of Myanmar every day. Even today, some trade happens at 8:45. So
Right.
yes, Myanmar is in the equation now. But if Myanmar increases its price above 875, 900, then we will probably have to switch towards Sudan, or we might look towards Australia 7/8. That's
Okay.
the two alternates that we are going to switch to. Yeah.
Okay. So coming
Mhm.
back to Mr. Ashok ji, how do you see the prices and demand in coming days? As Mr. Anas told, there has been businesses for Kabulis. So what is your view on the price and demand from Pakistan, including other countries as well?
No, that very rightly said by Mr. Ranas that already that business has been started due to the recent conflict and all this thing. Almost it started at 810 level for Kabuli, and today it has been traded at 845, 850 level for Pakistan. So demand is switching towards the Myanmar, and Myanmar also right now the production is good, so they are selling at these prices. I hope that the trade
Okay.
will maintain at this level plus minus $20.
Okay. And how prices will rule for both Desi and Kabulis internationally and locally?
No, if the demand increases from Pakistan, definitely prices will shoot up here because in
Okay.
Myanmar also they have their local consumption. So the sellings will be led, but it will happen only in the April only. Not I think that February and March will go stable because it's a harvesting time. Most of the crops get harvested here at that time, and money crunch is there. So at this particular period, yes, definitely the exports will be there from Myanmar.
Okay. Like Anas mentioned, we import around 120,000 tons of small caliber. So either it's from Russia or from Sudan or from Australia. So now if prices are workable, inshallah we will have trade with Myanmar as well. So Russia is out, so only we have Sudan and Myanmar and Australia. But the less transit time from Myanmar will make the business done, and I believe it will be much more competitive because we have ongoing demand all the year for Kabulis, and we use Desi as a substitute of Kabulis as well. Whatever the price higher, people just switch to different product. So
I
Anas,
hope
what do you
Mahesh
think
by
about?
next year. I hope Mahesh by next year your graph will little bit change because of the business will happen in Myanmar and Pakistan for Kabul. I'm sure for that. So maybe the next year graphs will show a different figures.
Okay, right. And how do you think this COVID wave is likely to affect, and what are these impacts? Global, Myanmar, chickpeas industry.
Now it has been almost more than 2 years now. So people are becoming little bit habituated to it now and
Okay, they are
managing.
used to it. Same like in Pakistan, we are.
Yes, yes. So
Okay,
apart from the freight charges, there is nothing else will be a problem for you.
okay. But there we came to know that the crude oil the price have increased because of the recent news of Russia and Ukraine. The freight prices might increase,
Yep.
but there's no still confirmed news. So do you believe the
Yeah.
freight will increase again from Myanmar as well, and it will create a big destruction for the exports from the Myanmar?
Uh, Mesh, it's already the freights are on the higher side now, and because of the recent conflict, I don't see that it will be a much more increase in the freights because it is already in the higher side.
Okay, okay. Coming back to Anas Bhai, what do you think about the prices locally, internationally? What prices are workable for commercial importers in Pakistan?
For which commodity, Desi or Kabulis?
For Desi and Kabulis, you
Or
can
both?
advise for both.
Desis at the moment, Pakistan is out. Pakistan is not buying from anywhere because, we have a new crop coming in April, which is expected to be a bumper crop, and prices are expected to fall below 100 rupees. So it's all speculation. It's all expectation, but right now it's too big a risk for any importer to import Desi chickpeas into Pakistan. So probably we'll have to wait for the next 1.5, 2 months, and then decide what
Okay.
to do on Desis. But for Kabulis, for the 8, 9 mm, we are very short of cargo here in Pakistan because buyers they couldn't
Okay.
import for the last 4 to 5 to 6 months, maybe small volumes here and there. So we are very short on the larger calibers. But yes, we did import some Russians last month, 2 months earlier, which are on the pipeline, which are about to reach here in Pakistan. So for the smaller caliber, still we need to buy a lot. If Russia situation does not improve, then probably Pakistan will go all out on Myanmar and Sudan and Australia.
We hope the situation between Russia and Ukraine gets better so we can do more trade. And inshallah, we are looking forward to
And
do
and just a
more trade
just a
with
request,
Myanmar as
just a
well as
request
Faida,
from
whatever
Manaji.
Anas said. Yes, please. Yes, Anas.
Yeah, just a request from Manojji because he was he really wanted to increase graph figures into Pakistan. So I would just request him to just lower the price to that's around $800, and we can see a very big graph of chickpeas coming out of Myanmar into Pakistan.
Inshallah, we'll surely see that figure
So yeah,
soon.
so the whole audience. This is a request from the whole audience, from the whole of Pakistan.
Okay. Now we'll come to Q&A session. There's a one question from Mr. Vladimir. Please assess the impact on the price of Kabuli chickpeas from the Black Sea region in light of the current war tensions between Russia and Ukraine. So, Anasji, what do you think? What will the price impact locally in Pakistan as well as
I think we all.
internationally?
Yeah, I think we already discussed this because Ukraine, because we are buying from Russia and Ukraine both. Right now, Ukraine is out of the out. Russia, it all depends what happens last week because there was I was hearing in the news that they are thinking of taking Russia out of the SWIFT system. So if it goes out of the SWIFT system, then payments cannot go in, it cannot come out, and Russia is out.
Okay.
And Pakistan needs 100,000 tons. So definitely prices are going to go up.
No, but like you said earlier, that there's a lot of cargo coming from Russia which is in transit to Pakistan.
Yes.
If there's any
Yes.
problem in terms of payment which cannot be reflected into Russia, how it will managed?
Yeah. It's a tough question. You never know what's going to happen because we haven't experienced anything like this before in the history.
Okay.
Or not in my personal life. So I really don't know what to say on that.
Okay.
It will be very difficult. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We pray that things goes well. We have another
Yeah.
question from Mr. Daniel Hassan, General Corporation. The current import prices for the Myanmar and Russian kabulis are same for Pakistan. Which origin would be preferred more? Anasji.
Okay. Yeah. Russia, it has a very good market here locally because Myanmar, we haven't imported since the last 3, 4 years. So it will be a little difficult to market it locally to get the buyer to accept the quality here locally in the local market. Obviously, if the prices are same, Russia is preferred, that's for sure. But secondly, what I'm seeing is what Manojji also told us was that the size of the Myanmar kabulis are small. So it's between 4 to 6 mm. And if I'm right,
Okay.
it's around 40 to 45% of 4 mm. Uh, so it's quite difficult to see how the market is going to react on that small size because we haven't had it for a long time. Uh, Russia is definitely preferred, that's for sure.
Okay. Okay. I believe the information was helpful to all our viewers. And I would like to thank you, Mr. Manojji and Anas Mania, as the speaker. And if I'll now give it to Mr. Pradeep ji. Thank you everyone for listening to our webinar. We believe it was helpful and useful for everyone. Looking forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pradeep, all to you.
Thank you, Mahesh bhai. Thank you, Manojji and Anas bhai, for this interesting discussion on Kabuli and desi chickpeas. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had three amazing panel discussions covering key pulses for both Myanmar as well as Pakistan. However, I'm sure you all will agree that as trade stakeholders, whether you're an importer or an exporter, you always want to be able to conduct your business in the most smooth and efficient manner, which can only be possible if there is an ease of doing business at both ends of the transaction. Our next panel focuses exactly on this, and we have two industry stalwarts, Mr. Vatsal Lilani, Managing Director, Evotop Commodities, Myanmar, and Mr. Dilip Kumar, Managing Director, Sakhi Group of Companies, Pakistan, to discuss the various issues being faced by the trade stakeholders in Myanmar and Pakistan, which are causing hindrance in terms of achieving ease of doing business. And they will also try and explore possible solutions to resolve these issues. But before we move on, let me take the honor of introducing both our speakers today. Mr. Vatsal Lilani, a commerce graduate from Mumbai University, also holds a master's degree in marketing. He joined Andre and Sai's Myanmar operations as country head in 1996, and since then has been a prominent face in the agro circles of the country. After a 15-year stint, he started his own business under the name of Evotop Commodities Private Limited, and has worked in several locations internationally such as Bangkok, Toronto, Dubai, and Singapore, and gathered extensive experience in the grain trade. On the other hand, Mr. Dilip Kumar has over 2 decades of experience in the pulses industry of Pakistan. He's one of the leading figures of the industry as well as one of the founding members of Pakistan Pulses Importers Association. Sakhi Group of Companies, established in 2002 as a local brokerage house, has today established itself as a leading service provider across imports, exports, trade, indent, local brokerage, production, warehousing, and supply chain. The group, with a team of young, dedicated professionals full of enthusiasm and love for the pulse industry, has made Sakhi Group one of the most trusted and reliable partners for clients across the globe. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Lilani and Mr. Kumar to today's webinar. And I now hand you over to Mr. Lilani to start the panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Lilani.
Pradeep, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Dilip ji also to this panel discussion. We have a few points to discuss, and I'll go in the order of importance. I think the big one that is affecting all of us today is the paucity of containers and the high transit time that we are experiencing either in Singapore or in Portland. Now, one way that Myanmar has been able to solve this problem as far as India is concerned is by having break bulk vessels operating between Yangon and Chennai, and even Yangon and Neva Sheva to some extent. Unfortunately, nobody has attempted to do this for Pakistan. But maybe the time is ripe for something like this to be attempted. And I'd like to know from Dilip ji as to what he thinks is the feasibility of doing something on these lines.
Thank you, Mr. Vatsal. And it's a great opportunity for me to discuss all the things. First of all, I want to tell you that in the Pakistan, we don't have the system of break bulk vessels. So it's not possible to come to on that point. And if we think about the containerized trade, for containerized trade in Burma, the vessels, we don't know when the vessel will come, and we don't know where the vessel is because there's no tracking system over there in Myanmar. So it's very difficult for us, for our buyers. They know where the vessel is, where the cargo will come, and it also faces the problem of financial problem for that. So I think this problem is because of the switch BL. If this problem happens in the switch BL, so it's difficult for us to track the vessel and to do the business in the vessel, break bulk vessel. But I think for my proposal is that PPI and OTA should sit down and give some proposals, and OTA should write an official letter to the authorities, and with the PPI support, that there should be the system for the especially for the switch BL and for this containerized trade. We should think what we will do is that there should be the tracking system, like in USA, in Australia. There is a tracking system. We buy the cargo from the main lines, and we track on the internet that there is a system, the cargo, when the cargo will arrive. But here the cargo is not traceable, so this happens, and that create the problem for the buyers also. Thank you.
Dilipji, can you tell us as to why you require the switch BL? I mean, Myanmar is not a sanctioned country. We're exporting even to the US. So why is this system still in place?
I think it comes to AU dollar system. Myanmar, India, and Pakistan. These are the countries. They are once if we buy the cargo from these countries, we have to pay the AU dollars. And in this system, Singapore, Malaysia didn't come. So for the bank purpose, bank needs need to pay payment for Singapore, for Malaysia in the US dollars, and for the Myanmar, for India, for other Asian countries, we have to pay for AC dollars. So for that, we need the BL, switch BL. We have to clear the documents from the bank, and then after the endorsement, we will go for the line, for the due, for the master BL, and then we clear the cargo. It's also the problem, but because of this system.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, we can discuss this separately, after this webinar is finished, as to how to handle the solution for it. But coming back to what you said, that break bulk system is not possible. I mean, Pakistan is exporting sugar, you're exporting rice, you're exporting other forms of grains. Why is a break bulk shipment not possible? I'm sure your rice would be being exported in break bulk too. So if you can export rice in break bulk, I'm sure you'd be able to receive pulses in break bulk. And the reason why I mentioned this is that today, if you have a vessel going to Neva Sheva with, say, 10,000 tons, we can piggyback 3 or 4 or 5,000 tons to Karachi. And even if that is not possible, it is possible to fix a vessel between Jabal Ali and Karachi, say 5,000 tons each. Because if you are able to do that, then the need to have containers completely sort of goes away. And that is how we have managed to lick the problem in terms of shipments to India. Also, what happened was that after the break bulk shipment started, the freight came down from $3,100 for Chennai to almost about $2,100. So, because the container operators also realized that we have an alternative, a much cheaper alternative. So, if you look at the freight today, to Chennai, the freight is $60 by break bulk, and by containers, it's about $82 or $83. So you got a difference of $22. Maybe the difference as far as Pakistan would be concerned would not be 22, maybe it is 15, but it is still $15 cheaper to get it in break bulk. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is because if you have a $15 advantage, a buyer may not want to buy 5,000 tons, but they can get together as a group and try to achieve this difference of $15 a ton to be able to compete in the market. So over to you. What do you think of the right?
Varsal, your point is valid, but let me clear this point in two ways. Number one, first of all, we will go for the technical reasons. In the switch BL system, it's not possible for us to import the break bulk vessel. Number one. Number two, Pakistan market is not as bigger as the market will consume the high volume, because if the vessel come over here and the quantity is high, it's not possible for the importers to take the market on the same level. Once the vessel arrival, definitely the market will go down, and vessel arrival will put the pressure in the market. So the two things: once the Pakistan market is for the, you can say they absorb the 100 containers, 200 containers, it's okay. But if we go for the 5,000 metric tons for vessel or 10,000 metric tons for vessel and the more quantity, the market will under pressure. The one reason is because of the price will create the issue, and the other is the technical issue is that first of all we have to sort out this matter of switch BL. Then we will think for the break bulk vessel.
Okay, understood. So anyway, as far as what you said, writing to your authorities is concerned, we can discuss that separately after the webinar is finished. The other issue that we have with Pakistan is the non-GMO certification that you require. Because see, today we've been exporting black matpe to various countries, India, Nepal, Bangladesh. No country is asking for any non-GMO certificate. Now, the problem with the non-GMO certificate is that we can get the phyto and the certificate of origin within 2 days' time. But the non-GMO certificate takes 2 weeks. And very often our people have to go to their office 2 or 3 times to be able to get the certificate. So it slows down the documentation because we have to send the documents to Singapore. From Singapore, the documents are going to Karachi. Slows the whole process down. And I don't think anything much is being achieved by this non-GMO certificate. So is there a way to sort of handle this issue?
This one is the good question from you. Actually, it's our government's requirement of the non-GMO certificate because Pakistan our authority don't want any GMO cargo here. But what we can do, I propose you that OTA should write a letter to our authorities. We will give you all the details of the authorities, and they mention that they mentioned to the government that there should be some relaxation if the same exporter and same cargo at the same period of time, and that exporter exports like 10 consignment, the government should give some relaxation. They should take the one GMO certificate. That will be okay. And I personally feel that the government may give this relaxation. And this will only happen once you write an official letter. OTA should write an official letter to the authorities with the support of PPI, and PPI will also support. That might be work.
I see. Okay, we can work towards that. I have a few other points, but before I get to that, why don't you tell me as to what difficulties you've been facing as far as Myanmar is concerned?
We are facing some difficulties. First of all, our main issue is weight shortage. Versal, normally from the last 4 to 5 years, we are facing this problem. What happens, any cargo, when arrive over here, each container we get 100 kg, 200 kg weight shortage. As you know that this is not the big weight shortage and it will not entertain by the law. And you know that once we go to the exporter for the claim, they said that this is under 0.5% and it is not workable. But you think when we buy the 100 consignment and we get the weight shortage of minimum weight shortage of 50 to 200 kg in 90 consignment, it create the panic to the buyers. The buyers think, what is happening? Why the only minimum shortages come from the Myanmar? We are importing from USA, Turkey, baked cargo, no weight shortage, 100% weight we receive. Any a single consignment, like in 100 consignment, we get the weight shortage. Not the 90% cargo is weight shortage. There should be some solution for this. Please look this matter.
Okay. I think you're not the only one who has complained. We've received complaints from some other sources also. And it is something that the government will have to do, but we will have to nudge the government into taking some action. One solution could be to have a public weighbridge. So the trucks, they do the in and out, and then you get the balanced residual weight of the cargo. But once again, your authorities will have to send us a message, an official message, so we can go to the authorities here and say that, we have received this complaint. It's a perennial problem. You need to look into it, because if you don't, then the reputation of the country could be at stake in terms of being a reliable, efficient supplier. And we can move this situation forward. So once again, after the webinar, we can take this forward. Tell me, what are the other points that you have in terms of where we can
problem which we are facing, actually, when we import the cargo from the Myanmar, normally the exporter do the business with the freight forwarders. And in that, we don't have any tracking system. Like in last few months, you see our cargo was stuck at the Singapore port, the Malaysia port. and our buyers didn't know when the cargo will arrive. And definitely this will create the problem for the buyers, because buyers have to arrange the finance to clear the cargo. Buyers have to do other arrangements for the selling purpose. So it's very difficult in the Myanmar that we are not able to track the cargo. So why? What happened? What should we do for that?
Now, again, I'm not an expert on this, but my feeling is it is related to the switch BL. Because when we take a switch BL, we are taking it from a forwarder. It may not be the boxes of the forwarder. The forwarder may not have slots on that mother vessel. He's only giving us a BL because you require port clang to be stated on the BL. So when you get that BL, you're not able to track the containers as to which mother vessel they've been loaded on. So one way to handle this, in my opinion, and we can discuss this with the shipping lines and get their input, would be to completely do away with this requirement of the switch BL. Then you have the master BL of the shipping line, and it will tell you exactly as to when the containers are loaded, where the containers are now, which is the intended vessel on which they are expected to come to Karachi. You will have the whole sort of system being displayed to you on those containers. So we'll need to look into the switch BL thing, because that is creating a lot of problems.
Yeah, you are right. One other question which is also related to with this, in Pakistan, it's general thinking, but it's general people's perception that the cost of the Myanmar shipping lines is very high. I think this is because of the freight forwarders business. What is happening when we import the cargo, like from Australia? We know that there are the minimum charges. But when we import the cargo from Myanmar, what happens? We have to pay the dirty charges. We have to pay the damage charges. We have to pay the charges of DO charges and endorsement charges also there. The cost is high to import from the Myanmar in the shipping line purpose. So it's also create the problem for the buyers, because buyers think that why all the world is importing from throughout the world and the costs are very low. But if we import from Myanmar, we have to pay all these charges. Why? There should be some solution for these also. What do you think, Varsal?
See, I tell you, before this container problem started, we probably had about 7 or 8 options in terms of shipping lines willing to take cargoes to Karachi. That 8 has been reduced to about 2 or 3. So if you ask those 3 lines that, listen, we want to know as to what your destination charges are, because only after we have an okay from our receiver to those charges, then we will ship through you. We will not be able to ship with anybody. You'll be left with maybe just one. So what you're saying is right. I mean, this problem is there. But if we try and dig deep into the problem before making the shipment, we will just not have the containers and we will miss the last shipment date. If we have more options in terms of the number of shipping lines that we can go to, and once the situation on the shipping sort of normalizes, then we will be able to have the options and be able to negotiate with the shipping lines. Today, it is quite difficult, I think it is something that we just have to sort of stomach and factor into our costing. Because I have had this problem. Right. I've had this problem with the shipping lines, and there's no way. They say, listen, take it or leave it. What are you going to
do? This happens only in this year, but before 2 years, before COVID, this was not the problem, because these last 2 years, shipping lines have the different strategy to deal. The other thing which I want to discuss with you, once we clear the documents from the bank, then after endorsement, we have to go to the shipping line for the master BL for the issuing of the due. What happens? Sometimes shipping lines say that the exporter didn't pay the freight, and other things they say that the exporter didn't surrender the master BL. And these things takes 2 to 3 days. And you know that in Pakistan, once we import the cargo, we have only 5 days to clear the cargo. After 5 days, there is a port damage start. And these things take the 2 to 3 days. It means our cargo will go for the damage. And I think this should be solved, because there is a mistrust which the buyer think that why we clear the cargo from the bank, we make the payment, but we are not getting the due. This also a problem for us. So please look this matter. What do you think about that?
No, see, this problem can be easily tackled because today, your consignment is coming probably after 40 or 45 days. So whoever is the broker in the transaction, the buyer can ask the broker to sort out these issues with the shipper. But listen, we want a message from the shipping line that the freight has been paid. And this he can probably do it on the 25th or the 30th day. So you still have 15 days time in terms of, getting that message and making sure that you'd be able to clear the cargo from the port quickly. So I don't think that is a major issue. Even in terms of the master BL being surrendered, we can get a copy of the master BL and the shipping line would put the shop surrendered and we can send it to you again on the 25th or the 30th day. So I think it's just a matter of good housekeeping that you can ask the broker involved in the transaction that, listen, can you please sort out these two issues well before the arrival of the cargo? And I'm sure it can be done. Because most exporters like us, we got to pay the freight within 7 days of the cargo leaving. We don't get any credit, and I don't think anybody wants credit. We just want to pay the freight and we want the BL, a freight prepaid BL. But then what happens is there is a time lag between the time the shipping line in Singapore gets the freight credited into their account and acknowledges that to the load port agent in Myanmar. And that person is the guy who's sending out messages to Karachi that the freight has been paid. So the freight is being paid in Singapore. The messages are originating out of Myanmar to send to Karachi that the freight has been paid. And between Singapore and Myanmar, there is some sort of confusion as to whether the freight has been paid or not. That message has not been sent. But it can be sent if you ask for it to be sent. That's what I'm saying.
My last point is, we are importing from throughout the world, from the Australia, Canada, US, and so many other origins. But the thing is that in the Myanmar is that there's too much volatility in the market. Like today I buy the black meat pay like $1,050 per metric ton. And after one night, when I came to my office and I got the message, it's 950, 925, 975. Too much volatility. Why this problem is only in the Myanmar? Because the price are like jump too high and comes too quickly. Why only in the Myanmar cargo?
Okay, I'm sure everybody has got a different explanation to this. But my explanation would be that this can only happen in black market. You will not see this happening in Desi. You will not see this happening in Kabuli. Because Myanmar is the only country in the world which has got commercial quantities of black market for export. If you had another origin which was competing with Myanmar, would not be so volatile. So that is one reason. The second is that for the last few years, the prices in Myanmar are dependent on rumors as to what the government of India is likely to do in terms of the trade policy. So, when you have a very toxic mix of all kinds of interpretations of what that policy is likely to be, you have very wide gyrations in the price. And more so now, as we approach the 31st of March, you got to be ready for a very rocky ride, I think, in terms of prices. Because every hour you'll get a different set of news and the prices would be dictated by what the sentiment of the news is. That's my feeling.
Is this because of the future trade also? Because the prices are going up and down because of the future trade?
But there is a future trade in India for sure. But and it's good that it is there because then at least there is a price discovery mechanism in place. But I don't think it's so much because of the future trade. I think it is more policy driven. That's my personal take on this.
What do you think? Should we discourage the future trade? Is this okay, future trade? Because I think PPI and OTA should discourage the future trade because the prices are very different when the cargo arrives, when the market is there, and very huge difference in the price. So it will create the problem for the buyers and at the same time for the sellers also. So what do you think? Future trade is good for this market, or PPI or OTA should discourage this future trade?
I think as far as OTA is concerned, it is not within our realm to decide or even influence as to whether the future trade should exist or not. It is for governments that are involved within their own geographies to decide as to whether that is good for them or not. And once they decide, we just have to follow it. That's one. Secondly, it is not necessary that the future market will always be up. It is possible that the future market can be down too. So if it is going to be down, then that is something that would help a buyer, a dal miller, because he knows that down the line, he'd be able to get cargo at a lower price. Again, there's no definite answer from my point of view to this question.
Okay.
But I have a
Thank
few
you.
points to ask you. We have seen an increasing trend, especially out of Pakistan, with buyers asking for 3 containers. The earlier ticket size used to be 5 containers, which has now shrunk to 3. And a guy like me, I don't have a problem with 3 containers, because I will just cost it accordingly. But today what happens is that when you have so much of bulk shipment taking place, and when your suppliers loading, 7,000-8,000 tons a week, you go to them and say, listen, I want a price for 3 containers. He hangs up on you because he says, listen, you're not sensitive. I got 8,000 tons loading and you are concerned about your 3 containers. When you ask him for 5, then at least he knows that, okay, India also buys 5 containers. Bangladesh can do the same. Nepal can do the same. But when you come with a requirement of 3 containers, it sort of completely changes the goalpost. So this is something that I want to just reach out to buyers in Pakistan, that is it possible for them to consider 5 containers because of the next point that I'm going to talk about, which is the cost of doing business that is defrayed over 5 containers instead of 3 containers. So your per metric ton cost is spread over 5 containers over 125 tons instead of 75 tons. So anyway, over to you.
Yes, you are right. But I think this is the mutual understanding between the seller and the buyer. What happens in Canada when we buy the cargo of 5 FCL, they have the different prices. And when we buy the cargo of 10 FCL single lot or 20 FCL single lot, there is a different in the price. The difference should be in the price. If you sell the cargo $1 or $2 cheaper in the 5 FCL and 10 FCL, definitely the buyer will think about that he is getting the cheaper cargo. Always in world, the smaller cargo have the high cost and the bigger cargo have the low cost. So I think it's for the seller, they should offer the higher price for the smaller cargo and the very little margin, and they should sell the bigger cargo with $1 or $2 cheaper. That will work. Otherwise, if the buyer get the 3 FCL, why should he go for the bigger cargo? He should have some benefit, then only go for the bigger cargo.
Okay, your point is taken. I think one of the other advantages of buying 5 containers is that from our point of view as an exporter, I have 10 exporters that would be willing to give me a price for 5 containers. But if you wanted only for 3 containers, you would probably have just 2 or 3. So even in terms of sharpness of pricing, I think it'll be much better to take a lot of 5 containers. Again, this is something that I'd just like to leave behind as a thought with all the importers. I'm sure they're watching, that it makes sense to consider 5 containers, especially at the time of the season as compared to 3, because exporters are busy loading bulk vessels and they don't have the time for 3 container lots.
Yeah, you are right, but there should be the price difference, then only the importer go for the bigger lots.
Okay, that point is taken. Understood. The next point that I have is on your correspondence charges, the bank charges that are being levied. Now, typically when we get a remittance out of India, it's about between $40 and $60 per TT. When you get a TT out of Pakistan, it is a minimum of $175 and can go all the way to $220, depending on the number of banks that are involved in the chain between Karachi and Singapore, which is where, the money lands up. it is a horrendous cost. Because if you add all the problems, number one problem is getting containers. Number two problem is a non-GMO certificate. Number three is probably you just got 3 containers. Number four is that your cost of doing transactions is very high because of these correspondence charges. Number five, of course, is that when you get the containers, you're not sure as to how long the transit time in port Klang is going to be. So the best way for Pakistani importers is to try and solve one problem at a time to the comfort of the exporters, so that exporters are more willing to give offers in spite of these problems. So tell us a little about this correspondence charges as to how these have come about and become very embedded in the system.
Normally, we also getting the complaints from other suppliers about this. The Pakistani banks are giving the high charges. Pakistani banks charges are very high. When we approach to the banks, normally banks say that this is not our bank charges, this is not the local bank charges. Because of this intermediary bank, they charge us. That's why we charge you. So I think this is not in the hands of any a single importer or any other associations. But what we can do, I think, as an exporter, you should select your intermediary bank, which should be in the panel of that local bank. That will clarify you that why the charges are there. If the charges are because of the intermediary bank, then okay. But if the charges are because of the local bank, then we can talk with the local bank. This is the only solution in my point of view.
But see, Dilipji, there are intermediary banks involved even as far as Indian payments are concerned or payments out of Dubai are concerned, right?
Yeah.
But in spite of that, you don't have such a high charge. So why would it be that an intermediary bank would cost more for Pakistani remittances as against remittances from other countries? I mean, to an intermediary bank, it doesn't make a difference. They're just a conduit for taking the money from one end and putting it on the other.
Yeah, you are right. You are right that the intermediary bank are also in other origins and destinations also there. But our banks normally they give the excuse that we are not charging. We are charging very low cost, but this is the cost we have to pay for the intermediary bank. So my point of view, once you select your own intermediary bank, which should be the panel in the local bank, you know the exact charges. If the charges are not there, then we can talk again to the bank. Otherwise, bank normally gives simple excuse that this is not our charge.
Okay, understood. Maybe this is another point to be discussed after the webinar and see how we can sort it out.
Yeah.
Good. I don't have any other points at this point. If you have any others, we can discuss or we can take questions.
I think it's okay because in Myanmar, we don't have too much quality issues. The issues that I told you 2 or 3, that's okay.
Okay, understood. Pradeep, do we have questions from the audience?
Vatsalji, there's one question which says, it's Mr. Sunil Patwari of Seasons Overseas Group. How can you track when POL has changed? MLOs are not ready to change POL.
What is MLOs?
I think he means the shipping lines, probably.
A mainline operator. Okay.
Mainline operators.
Mm-hmm. So what's the question again?
How can you track when the POL is changed? How can you track consignments? Because MLOs are not ready to change the POL. Now, I'm not sure what POL stands for.
Oh, that is the port of loading.
Okay.
Port of loading. Port of loading.
Yeah. I think one way of doing it is you have a master BL. Let us say you got a master BL from a line like RCL, for instance. Okay. Now, on master BL, they would have port of loading as Rangoon and port of discharge as Karachi. But that master BL, you kept it aside because now you want to change the port of loading to Malaysia. So if you were to look at the RCL master BL, I think it is possible to track it. I got Hitesh Jain out here. Maybe he's got a... You want to say something?
You can track the vessel.
Okay, you can track the vessel, he says. But Sunil, I think that is the only logical answer that I can give you, that if you look at the master BL, maybe it is possible to track it. I believe there is also a system now in place wherein you just punch in the container numbers and it'll give you the whole history of the containers as to what they've done in the last 5 years. So maybe that is the other way to go.
I had a question for Dilipji. You mentioned that you have precisely about 5 days to clear the cargo, after which you have the demurrage charges from the port coming in. Is there a possibility of PPIA as the local, the apex body for Pakistan to approach the port authorities for a little more extended time of free period, given the facts that there are certain bureaucratic delays or process or logistical delays in getting all the documentation together and being received from Myanmar? So can the association approach the port authorities for maybe 2 or 3 more days, or 4 more days, or 5 more days?
Pardeepji, before few years, the time of the government for the port free days was 7 days. But after the meeting in the ministry, and when they calculate the time, how much time the cargo takes once the cargo arrives, and the buyer take the documents for same day or first day, it is possible for the buyers to take the cargo within the 5 days. And this is because of the congestion in the port also. And ministry decided this is okay. They viewed some points where the cargo stops. But now I think because of the single window which arrives in Pakistan, that the time period is short. But if we get the documents and we didn't get the cargo due from the shipping lines, like earlier I discussed the matter with the vessel. If this does not happen, then it is easy for us if we take the document from the bank first day, and it's okay for us to clear the cargo within 3 to 4 days.
But given the fact that there is a bit of upheaval in Myanmar, so even the government offices probably not at 100% functional capacities, is that also causing this delay in documents moving from origin to destination? And therefore, can PPIA use that as a factual basis to go to the port authorities to say that, look, there is this issue in Myanmar which is causing the delay, and therefore can we look at an extension on the free period, at least till this situation gets resolved and things come back more towards normalcy?
Pradeep, there are 2 points. Number one, there is no disturbance out here as far as churning out documents is concerned. It's extremely efficient. Secondly, even if there was a delay of 2 or 3 days, the transit time today is 45 days. So a 2 or 3 day delay in documentation, you still have a huge period to, as a cushion.
Okay.
So I don't think this would hold.
Okay. There's a question that's just popped up. If Switch BL mentions transshipment vessel on the BL, then they can track vessel instead of containers. This is the only solution at this moment. What do you think about that? The question is to both of you.
I think it's possible. I think it is possible.
This is possible, but in my point of view, if we use the freight forwarders, it's difficult for us to track the vessel. Once we get the booking from the main line or lines directly, then it's possible to track the vessel where the cargo is.
A bit of an amateur question, or if I may say, an Anadi question. When you have the first mother vessel leaving from Myanmar, and if it's a transshipment cargo, does the shipping line also give you the name of the transshipment vessel at the very beginning, or it is once it reaches the transshipment port, then whichever vessel is available? Because if there's no vessel name available, how can it be mentioned in the BA?
No,
at the transshipment port.
So you see, when you do the booking, they will tell you that the intended mother vessel is XYZ.
Correct.
But it is their option as to whether they actually put it on that intended vessel or not. And 9 times out of 10 at the moment, it doesn't go on that vessel. The mother vessel gets rolled out at least 3 or 4 times. And the reason that they've been giving is that these large vessels, that when they come in from China, they are so fully laden, they don't even stop at port line. They just sort of bypass port line and go on to, Indian waters, Jabal Ali, Karachi, to discharge the containers.
No further questions here right now. So, Vatsal, back to you.
Okay, good. I think we've had a good discussion in terms of the problems that exporters and importers have been facing. And we will have to, once the webinar is finished, we'll have to sit down and see how to lick these problems. But I'm sure we will find a way around it. That side, I turn the mic over back to you, Pradeep, for the next session, or for the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Vatsal and Dilipji. I'm sure that the issues discussed by both of you, along with the possible resolutions, will have provided some food for thought to all our delegates who are attending the webinar today. As a matter of fact, if I can hazard a guess or an amateur opinion, probably a lot of these issues are also contributing to the low levels of imports from Myanmar by Pakistan, even where key pulses are concerned. So probably if these resolutions move forward and there are some solutions found, the trade can look at increasing between the two nations. And for all our viewers today, on behalf of OTA and PPI, I would like to request you to please write in to us with any other issues that you could probably have in your mind. And it'll be great if you can also suggest some resolutions. We'd love to hear from you. You can write to us on our email ID, chairman@otamyanmar.com. That way they go straight to Vatsalji and he can then take it with Dilipji and have a discussion on that. Thank you once again for your contributions, Vatsal and Dilipji. I will now once again invite Mr. Vatsal Lilani, but this time as the president of Overseas Agro Traders Association, Myanmar, to deliver the closing remarks and the vote of thanks. Over to you, Vatsalji.
Thank you, Pradeep. First of all, I'd like to thank Ahmed and the PPIA, because when we had this idea of having a joint webinar and we reached out to them, they accepted instantly. They thought it was a very good idea, and we set the whole motion and the process in motion. So thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Ahmed, also for extending an invitation to OTA's members to visit Karachi. I'm sure in due course of time, we will plan a visit, a group visit, and come over. I'd like to personally thank all the panelists and the sponsors, and I'll just read out the names of the sponsors. We got Adroit Overseas, Dhoni and Company, Evertop Commodities, Kanwal Enterprises, Musk Calendar Group, Neha Enterprises, Promising Pulses International, the Saki Group, and Sun Impex International. Thank you so much for your contribution. In terms of takeaways, I think there are 2-3 points that stand out. Number one is, of course, until the shipping problems are sorted, we're going to have a lot of inconveniences built into the trade, and we'll just have to weather it and find the best possible solution. As far as the other issues that were discussed were concerned, in terms of the switch BL or the correspondence charges, I think the two associations can put their heads together and find a way to try and mitigate these issues. The other issue we in Myanmar often talk about is finding, we have some very large buyers, and when the policies of these large buyers, the governments change, then we in Myanmar are at a loss as to how to handle the large production that we have. One way out of this, and I was quite amazed to know that the Kabuli imports into Pakistan are about 275,000 tons. Now, Myanmar grows Kabulis. So this could be a very effective substitute crop that Myanmar can look at to try and reduce the importance of any one large buyer, so that in case that buyer has a good production here in their own country, then at least Myanmar is not affected because you have a substitution in place. The other point that I would like, which amazed me, was Bilal mentioning that green mung beans is a substitute to black mat pay when the price goes from, say, $800 to $900. I mean, we have both green mung bean as well as black mat pay being grown. Okay, I've taken note of the fact that mung beans are also grown in Pakistan, but in case the price of black mat pay was to go exceedingly high, then at least we are also in a position to supply green mung beans if that is required. That said, I don't have any other points to discuss at this point. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening on. We've had a total of 350 people register for this webinar from 25 different countries. And Pradeep tells me that we have over 200 people attending. So thank you so much and wish you a good night. Bye-bye.